Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayadvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Puri Brajagacharya Ashtotar Sate Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Brinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hari
Thank
Bol.
you, Akendra Prabhu, so much. And thank you all for being here, continuing our journey through Caitanya Caritamrta with a very famous verse. Yes, this is Adi Lila, chapter 8, text 16. So I look forward to hearing from all of you your thoughts and comments. And let's begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bahu Janma Kore Yadi Shravana Kirtana Tabutana Pai Krishna Pade Premadhana. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get the love of Godhead. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in this connection that although one may go on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for many, many years, there is no possibility of attaining the platform of devotional service unless one accepts Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One must follow strictly the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu given in the Shikshashtaka. Dharnadapi sunichena tarori basahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. One who follows this direction, being freed from the 10 kinds of offenses, becomes successful in Krishna consciousness and ultimately reaches the platform of loving service to the personality of Godhead. One must come to the understanding that the holy name of the Lord and the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself are identical. One cannot reach this conclusion unless one is offenseless in chanting the holy name. By our material calculation, we see a difference between the name and the substance. But in the spiritual world, the absolute is always absolute. The name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the absolute are all as good as the absolute himself. Thus, one is understood to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he considers himself an eternal servant of the holy name, and in this spirit distributes the holy name to the world. One who chants in that spirit without offenses is certainly elevated to the platform of understanding that the holy name and the personality of Godhead are identical. To associate with the holy name and chant the holy name is to associate with the personality of Godhead directly. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is clearly said, Sevan mukhe hijifadao swayam eva spurat yadaha. The holy name becomes manifest when one engages in the service of the holy name. This service in a submissive attitude begins with one's tongue. Sevan mukhe hijifadao. One must engage his tongue in the service of the holy name. Our Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. We try to engage all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement in the service of the holy name. Since the holy name and Krishna are non-different, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement not only chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, but also do not allow their tongues to eat anything that is not first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord declares, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti upahritam ashnami prayatatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Therefore, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has many temples all over the world, and in each and every temple the Lord is offered these foods. On the basis of his demands, the devotees chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly and never eat anything that is not first offered to the Lord. The functions of the tongue in devotional service are to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and eat prasadam that is offered to the Lord. Om Jnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Sha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I remember chanting this verse, the English, in the Los Angeles temple from when I was very small. As a young child, I memorized this, but I said one thing wrong. I never understood that the word being used was infested, that if one is infested with the 10 offenses. As a child, I always heard, and for many years, I don't think I was corrected until I was maybe in my 20s. I always thought it was invested, that one has some capital in these 10 offenses. And that investment, I considered the investment of one's time, of one's interest, of one's desire. That if one has ulterior motivations, if one is still putting small investments of one's attention away from Krishna. And I think that perhaps, although I misunderstood the word, I think it's quite poignant that that if one is investing in these things, then one becomes infested with them. Wherever one puts one's attention, that's the direction. Wherever the head goes, the body follows. Wherever the mind goes, the rest of one's attention goes. So Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, he's glossing a verse, Abhinatvan Nama Naminoho, that the Supreme Lord is non-different from his name. And we're hearing in the Ajamil pastime, we're hearing the glories of the holy name in online classes I'm attending here in Hawaii. It's mostly attended by Hawaii residents, but the online classes are available to anyone who would like to join those if it suits your time zone. esangha.org, if anyone's interested. It's saturated with Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples. It's almost exclusively Srila Prabhupada's disciples. A few others join now and again. But His Holiness Bhakti Abhay Ashram Raj gave class a couple days ago, and he was speaking about the glories of the holy name. And one of the things he mentioned was that this inattention is the source of the other 10 offenses. That by being inattentive in one's chanting, then one falls victim to the other 10 offenses. One becomes infested with the other 10 offenses, and then one's whole devotional program becomes destroyed. So I think I'll stop there. And this verse, we could give seminars for many, many months on this topic, but let's see, we have a comment. I'm interested in, okay, I'll send the link. Guru Maharaj, if you would like to speak on this topic.
Carry on.
Okay. We have a comment from Ananta Shesh Prabhu. Energy flows where attention goes. Frequently quoted by Sheshika Prabhu. Oh, beautiful. Energy flows where attention goes. I was with Guru Maharaj. We were attending the seminars of His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, and this is years ago, I think in Atlanta, and he was quoting the verse that we all know. It's a succession of the elements. Above the material elements are the body, the mind is above the senses, the intelligence is above that, and indriyebhya parastu saha. The word saha means above the intelligence is that. And in pursuance of Baladev Vidyabhushan's version, Srila Prabhupada says that the soul is above the intelligence. And I remember His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj said that above the intelligence in Ramanujacharya, Srila Ramanujacharya said it differently. He said that saha is desire, that above intelligence is desire. So wherever your interest goes, whatever your desire is, that's the highest thing. So when our desire is to pursue Krishna consciousness, then we chant attentively. When our desires are misguided, I just thought of this when I saw Anantashesh Prabhu's comment, energy flows where attention goes. When your desire is flowing towards something ulterior, or something different from Krishna consciousness, then everything is destroyed, because that's the highest platform, above the intelligence even, according to Srila Ramanujacharya. Panchatat Prabhu says in the comments, inattentiveness in chanting is a subcategory of the 10th offense against the chanting of the holy names. After all, inattentiveness means you are maintaining material attachments. Anything else on this topic from anybody? All right.
I wanted to just share one thing. This is something that Rabindra Swarup Prabhu often brings up in his classes, and that is that he tends to focus very much on this point that inattentiveness is the cornerstone of all the other offenses. And he also points to that as in a practical sense, if we're feeling somehow dissatisfied or slightly adrift in our own spiritual navigation, then perhaps he advises it's time to really start to pay attention to the holy name. Even if you thought you were before, do it more, because Krishna works through that attentiveness. And when we show Krishna that we're interested in him, guess what? He's also interested in us, and he may make whatever changes are required in our life that we can't possibly make ourselves, just on the strength of our showing him the proper attention.
That's such a nice meditation. When things are awry in our lives, Vaisheshika Prabhu also stated this, that when people, disciples or others, come to him with problems, one of his first questions to them is, are you chanting your rounds, and are you reading? He says anyone who's reading and chanting, they don't have any problems. They don't come with difficulties. Generally, there may be some rare exceptions within the scope of devotional service. We have some difficulties we have to navigate, but generally, when people are showing up with a lot of issues, there's something lacking in their chanting and reading. And so, thank you, Akendra Prabhu, for that. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu bringing it back to the basics. Chant. Sarve vidhi nishedhasyor. Everything else follows this principle, remembering Krishna, and the way we do that is by chanting.
There was another point that I thought of when Prabhupada says here in the purport, to associate with the holy name and chant the holy name is to associate with the personality of Godhead directly. I remember my first experience of reading Bhagavad Gita as an outsider. I could appreciate the philosophy on some level. It made sense to me logically. It seemed very practical. But everywhere that Prabhupada quoted the need for chanting Hare Krishna, that I just sort of put aside in my mind because it was outside my logical sphere of reference. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't relate to it. And I certainly was not about to just do it on somebody's say-so it didn't make logical sense. But now, a few years later, I'm appreciating that Prabhupada stressed this so much, even for the newest of applicants to the process of bhakti, that how absolutely necessary it is to associate with Krishna in this way, because we cannot make progress simply on the strength of our own logic and power of mind. It really happens by Krishna's grace, by associating with him in this way, but through chanting.
Yeah, I actually had that when I read that in the purport. I also had that thought. I thought of His Holiness Ashram Maharaj mentioned also a couple of days ago when Srila Prabhupada says there's no difference you're associating with the Lord. I thought actually there's a small difference. The holy name is more merciful. Ashram Maharaj mentioned that in his class that actually the holy name is the most merciful. It's we have direct access. We get to associate with the Lord through the holy name. Who can I call upon to read the next verse? Panchatattva Prabhu, are you available for reading?
I am available.
So it will be Adi 8:17.
Okay. Jnanata sulabha muktir bhuktir jagyari punyataha sayam sarana sahasrayar haribhakti sudurlabha. By cultivating philosophical knowledge, one can understand his spiritual position and thus be liberated. And by performing sacrifices and pious activities, one can achieve sense gratification in a higher planetary system. But the devotional service of the Lord is so rare that even by executing hundreds and thousands of such sacrifices, one cannot obtain it. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj instructs, Matirna Krishne Paratasvato Va Mitho Bipadyeta Grihat Britanam. Bhagavatam 7.530. And in 7.532, Naishammatistavad Sprishatyanartha Bhagamo Yadartaha Mahiyasam Pararajo Bhishekam Niskinchananam Navranita Yavat. These shlokas are to be discussed. Their purport is that one cannot obtain Krishna Bhakti or the devotional service of the Lord by official execution of the Vedic rituals. One has to approach a pure devotee. Narottam Das Thakur sings, Chadiya Vaishnav Seva Nishtar Payeche Keva, who has been elevated without rendering service to a pure Vaishnava, unquote. It is the statement of Prahlad Maharaj that unless one is able to accept the dust from the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava, there is no possibility of achieving the platform of devotional service. That is the secret. The above-mentioned Tantra Vachana, quoted from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.136, is our perfect guidance in this connection. Om Ajnana Timiranda Shagananjana Salakaya Chakshumani Tanyena Tasmai Shri Rave Namaha. Of course, I'm here with my Kindle. It'd be nice to be able to turn to these verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam 7th Canto and mine them for the with the particular attention that Srila Prabhupada is asking us to pay attention to them with. He says in the purport, these shlokas are to be discussed. It's like a command coming right out of the purport. Focus on this. Understand that without the mercy of a pure devotee, without, as Narottam Das Thakur says, without accepting the dust from the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava, there is no possibility of achieving the platform of devotional service. So what does that actually mean, accept the dust from the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava? It means that you accept the dust from the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava by becoming very humble and rendering service. Very, very humble. And without any condition, without any hesitation, without any reluctance, accepting the order of the spiritual master or this pure devotee as your life and soul. That's what it means. And that's the thing, we come to devotional service, we can be kind of on what is, sometimes it's referred to as the shadow platform, shadowy devotional service, chaya, because we're maintaining we're trying to practice devotional service, but we're having all kinds of material desires, and we're maybe maintaining desire for, fruitive activities, some, relief from material suffering, so many things. But ultimately, through, as is mentioned in the previous verse, through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra under the guidance of a pure devotee, we can come off of this shadowy platform, the semblance of devotional service, and come to the platform of pure devotional service. Without getting to that point, at least my studies lately have been leading me in this direction again and again. Without getting to that point, we're always have a little bit of cheating involved. There's a little kaitava going on. We want to get, and the thing is, Krishna is so kind on this point that he encourages us. Shukadeva Goswami is so kind on this point that he encourages us. Akama Sava Kama Va Moksha Kama Udarati Tivreni Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham. Whatever position you're coming from, however shadowy your practice of devotional services, you do this because, and Krishna is encouraging because he wants us to come to the platform of pure devotion, and not and to linger in these other positions, not very long. Come forward. It's like a student, They start up with a little bit of knowledge. They're making mistakes. They don't have a complete understanding, when they're in the school. But then they come, aha, now I understand. Now I see the truth of the subject. So similarly, in devotional service, there's some practice. There's some realization. And ultimately, there's the mercy of Krishna through the spiritual master. So we can actually go beyond our selfish position, that self-absorbed position of trying to enjoy matter, of trying to enjoy this body and this mind and a whole host of other, corollary enjoyments, and just render devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, any further thoughts on these verses?
Carry on.
Anybody else? I'm noticing I see something in the chat here. Tulsi Priyamata quotes, my husband, Ekendra Prabhu, shared this with me a couple days ago regarding chanting being beyond logic. Looks like it's from Science of Self-Realization. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of sense, mind, and intelligence, he is then on the transcendental plane. This chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus this sound vibration surpasses all lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation, nor any intellectual adjustment for chanting this Maha Mantra. It is automatic from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification. So nice. And I've also put the link for those who want to attend daily Bhagavatam classes. Praveen Krishna Prabhu says, what is the destination of those chanting inattentively? I would suggest that we turn to Guru Maharaj for that. What is the destination of one chanting inattentively?
Well, the result is that we don't get the love for Krishna. That's the desired result of the chanting. He doesn't complete the process. Now, exactly what destination he gets, that's another thing. But more the destination he doesn't get.
These verses are so wonderful. Matirna Krishna and Naishamati Stavad. It's every time I see them, it brings joy to my heart. And then as you make the connections, I think actually it was with Praveen Krishna Prabhu in Vrindavan last time we were looking at that verse along with contextually the other verse that mentions taking an abhishek in the dust of the lotus feet, which was the instructions given to Maharaj Rahugana by Jayadvaita, we get almost a very similar concept, but this concept of taking a bath in the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava, of the spiritual master, which was so nicely described by Panchatattva Prabhu, taking that humble state of mind, making oneself a lowly servant, also mirrored in the last verse where Srila Prabhupada quoted Trinadapi Sunichena. These are the methods of achieving success. We have a couple more things in the chat. Tulsi Priya Devi says, doesn't Srila Bhaktivinoda say we can go on chanting for millions of lifetimes if we're not chanting properly? So at least another chance to get it right, or millions of chances. I will see Krishna again.
Can I just interject something? I think because Prabhupada is saying that we should study these verses, that we should actually reference them. Maybe somebody could read 530 and 32. If anyone else is in agreement, I think it's actually a really good idea at this point because Prabhupada is saying directly.
All right, I await volunteers to read those verses. In the meantime, I'll go through the chat.
Is that all right, Guru Maharaj, or should we just take that up on our own personal time?
That's fine. Very good.
All right. We'll finish the chat and then we can go to those verses. Ananta Sheshpru says, inattentive chanting results in more chanting and many lifetimes, hopefully. So messages of hope from Tulsi Priya Devi and Ananta Sheshpru. And Praveen Christian Prabhu says, so rebirth is a possibility, even if one followed the 4 regs and chanted 16 rounds daily, but inattentively. It's anecdotal, but my personal experience is that chanting inattentively leads to the other offenses, and pretty soon you stop chanting. That's been my experience. If one is not actively trying to chant, and if you're not making positive progress, then you're slipping backwards. Has been my experience, but I don't have Shastric Pramana for that.
As I recall, that's exactly what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says is the effect.
Yeah, so I think we have an instance that may be very, very rare, maybe the exception, that someone is able to follow 4 regs and chant 16 rounds, but do so inattentively. Usually one's consciousness is being diverted somewhere else, which leads to not chanting.
Kadamba used to say, why are we still here in this material world? Someone's born into this movement, or someone's naturally attracted to this movement from a previous life, but why did we have to come back? It means we blew it in previous lifetime. Somehow we blew it. So in this lifetime we should be very careful.
Yeah, and we see the example of advanced Vaishnavas. I know Purva and Kamalini Mata, sometimes they attend these classes, and I remember a Purva Prabhu came to me. I was chanting in Srila Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan, and my head was falling, and I didn't know it. And he started speaking very strongly to me. He said, "You're chanting inattentively," and he had tears in his eyes. He was like, "Prabhu, stand up." He took it so seriously that it impacted me after all these years. I remember that instruction, chant attentively. I may not have been, watching movies with my hand in the bead bag. I was just nodding off. But even in that state, he told me, stand up, take this chanting seriously. I don't see anybody volunteering readily for reading those verses. Oh, Akendra Prabhu.
I can read. This is 7.5.30. The purport's tremendously long, so if it's okay, I'll read the Sanskrit in translation. Shri Parada Uvacha Matirna Krishne Paratasvatova Matobi Padyeta Griha Britanam Adanta Gobhir Vishatang Tamishram Puna Punascharvata Charvananam. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both?
Maybe you could read the last paragraph or two of the purport. The last paragraph is especially applicable in this discussion.
Sure. Well, Prabhupada quotes Mahatmanas tumam partha diving prakritim ashrita. This is last leading into the last paragraph of that purport. Bhajantyananya manaso gyadva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and exhaustible. That's 9:13. A Mahatma is one who is constantly engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. As explained in the following verses, unless one adheres to such a great personality, one cannot understand Krishna. Hiranyakashipu wanted to know where Prahlad had gotten this Krishna consciousness, who had taught him. Prahlad sarcastically replied, "My dear father, persons like you never understand Krishna. One can understand Krishna only by serving a Mahat, a great soul. Those who try to adjust material conditions are said to be chewing the chewed. No one has been able to adjust material conditions, but life after life, generation after generation, people try and repeatedly fail. Unless one is properly trained by a Mahat, a Mahatma, or unalloyed devotee of the Lord, there is no possibility of one's understanding Krishna and his devotional service."
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu, for encouraging us to read that, because contextually, that's amazing. You know, if you
It's
think about it, the fearlessness of a 5-year-old boy to tell the king of demons that my dear father, you're a little wayward. You've got the
being
wrong idea.
sarcastic about it.
And yeah, not only are you wayward, but you can't be corrected because you're addicted to sense gratification. Now, what an amazing, but said kind of sweetly, although sarcastically, it's.
And at the end he asked on behalf of his father after he was killed. He didn't ask that his father not be killed, but he asked afterwards if he could be relieved of his burden of sinful activities. Such a wonderful Vaishnava saint.
All right, shall we read the other verse as well?
Yeah, it's got a long purport too, but it's still
maybe just the translation then, if you're up for it,
Yeah.
Panchatattva.
Yeah, sure. Naishamatis tavad urukramangrim sprishatyanartha bhagamo yadartaha mihiyasam padarajobhishekam niskinchananam navranita yavat. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. So the purport, of course, is worth every moment of time, but suffice it to say that we can study that as an aside on our something worth looking at and reviewing.
It brings to mind this Mahiyasam, this great soul. It brings to mind the Nectar of Instruction verse that says, "Hridam ipsata sangalabdhya." Shunya hridam, that there's no nindadi shunya hridam ipsata sangalabdhya. The one who has no inclination to commit offenses, that person whose heart is completely pure, one should be very desirous of their association. That verse reminded me. All right, let's read the next verse. I know I must call on people. We haven't had Tulsi Priya Devi with us in so long. Would you mind reading our next verse?
I knew you were going to ask me, and I'm not prepared right now.
Okay.
So if
No
you want,
worries.
I can read the next one if there's time.
Okay. All right. Who can we call on? I'm just running down the list here. Ross Brewer, are you available for reading a verse? I'm putting people on the spot. Ross is not responding. Tulsi Toshani Devi, I know you've read in the past. Are you available? We are on verse 18. No, yes, 18. But you're muted.
Okay. Krishna yadi chutte bhakti bhukti mukti diya kabu prema bhakti na dena rakina lukaya. Translation: If a devotee wants liberation or material sense gratification from the Lord, Krishna immediately delivers it, but pure devotional service he keeps hidden. So pure devotional service is really, really special and secret and intimate. Next. Rajan Patir Gururalam Bhavatam Yadunam Daivam Priyaha Kulapatihi Kvacha Kinkarovaha Astvevam Manga Bhagavan Bhajatam Mukundo Muktim Dadati Karhichit Smana Bhakti Yogam. Translation: The great sage Sukadev said, "My dear Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is always ready to help you. He is your master, guru, God, and very dear friend, and also the head of your family. Yet sometimes he agrees to act as your servant or order carrier. You are greatly fortunate because this relationship is possible only by bhakti yoga. The Lord can give liberation, mukti, very easily, but he does not very easily give one bhakti yoga because by that process he is bound to the devotee." Purport. This passage is a quotation from Srimad-Bhagavatam 5.6.18. While Sukadeva Goswami was describing the character of Rishabhadev, he distinguished between bhakti yoga and liberation by reciting this verse. In relationship with the Yadus and Pandavas, the Lord acted sometimes as their master, sometimes as their advisor, sometimes as their friend, sometimes as the head of their family, and sometimes even as their servant. Krishna once had to carry out an order of Yudhishthir's by carrying a letter Yudhishthir had written to Duryodhana regarding peace negotiations. Similarly, he also became the chariot driver of Arjuna. This illustrates that in Bhakti Yoga, there is a relationship established between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotee. Such a relationship is established in the transcendental mellows known as Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. If a devotee wants simple liberation, he gets it very easily from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed by Bilva Mangal Thakur. Muktihi svayam mukuli tanjali se vate sman. For a devotee, mukti is not very important because mukti is always standing on his doorstep waiting to serve him in some way. A devotee, therefore, must be attracted by the behavior of the inhabitants of Vrindavan who live in a relationship with Krishna. The land, water, cows, trees, and flowers serve Krishna in Santaras. His servants serve him in Dasaras, and his cowherd friends serve him in Sakyaras. Similarly, the elder gopis and gopas serve Krishna as father and mother, uncle and other relatives, and the young gopis, the cowherd girls, serve Krishna in conjugal love. Please let me know if I should stop at one point.
Maybe, yeah. I do have a question that I'd like to put forward to the group at large, and specifically to you, Guru Maharaj, if you're available for it. But the last verse, it states that Krishna is willing to give these lesser items below bhakti. But I've always heard that it's kind of maybe not as a criticism, but just as something that maybe worshiping the demigods will allow. By worshiping Shiva, you'll get these other ulterior things, but Krishna, he won't give you those things. And that's why sometimes it's recommended. Even Mahaprabhu himself teased Kolavecha Sridhar, look around you, all these Chandi worshippers, they're getting so much opulence. why don't you also worship Chandi? And so he said, no, I'm not interested. Bhakti is, we aspire for bhakti. We don't want these other things. But in the last verse, it was saying that Krishna will give devotees those things. So it seems like a little bit of a contradiction.
Krishna doesn't give them if he's particularly inclined to the devotee. If I particularly favor someone, I take away all his opulences. So Krishna is flexible. He can give. All right, you want some material thing? Take it. Or he can be more merciful. You want some material thing, but I'm not going to give it to you. Or he can be supremely merciful. You want some material thing, I'm going to take it away from you. That's all up to Krishna. The demigods are more responsive by obligation. If you worship the demigod according to the rules and regulations, the demigod has some obligation. All right, you take this, take that. But or they may be just materially merciful, like Lord Shiva. He very easily is satisfied and gives what's asked. Krishna is particularly considerate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. And Nanta Sheshpuru gives us the reference for Yasyaham Anugrahnami in the chat. And Saraswati Devi, I believe you have your hand up if you'd like to ask a question.
Pranams to all. I did try to ask this question, but that time Maharaj wasn't giving class. But we've read about the different rasas. And the question that I wanted to ask was that Narad Muni, like it said that in Vraja, he's also, one of his rasas is that he's a gopi called Naradya Gopi. And then also it said that he's also a cowherd friend called Madhu Mangala. And also in the Gaura Lila, we know his Srivas Pandit. So I'm just thinking, like, we know that souls can also expand. So like, it's really confusing because I thought one soul would have one rasa, but here we're looking at Narad Muni having two rasas for sure. And then in the Gaura Lila, his Srivas Pandit. So is it that he's expanded into these multiple forms in order to have different rasas? Hare Krishna.
So it appears.
Thank you. We have another comment from Tulsi Priya Devi. Isn't it also the case that the demigods aren't acting independently? Whatever the demigods give is really coming from Krishna. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. And from Praveen Krishna Prabhu, Krishna kahe ama bhaje mage vishaya sukha amrita chali visha mage e bada morka ami vigya e morka vishaya kene diba swacharan amrita diya vishaya bhulaiba. Krishna says, if one engages in my transcendental loving service, but at the same time wants the opulence of material enjoyment, he is very, very foolish. Indeed, he is just like a person who gives up ambrosia to drink poison. Since I am very intelligent, why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. Thank you, Praveen Krishna Prabhu. That was actually the quote I was trying to find in connection with my question. Thank you for supplying that. And I appreciated your reply, Guru Maharaj. There was sort of 3 tiers there, that Krishna can give something, or he can withhold it, or if he's really merciful, take it away, so that one can actually taste that ambrosia. Thank you. Tulsi Toshini Devi, would you continue reading the next? Oh, are you? Yes, you're there.
Yeah, okay. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm just messed up with the phone. Okay. While executing devotional service, one must be naturally inclined to serve Krishna in one of these transcendental relationships. So I just have a question. Is Sankhya Sankhya Ras is like neutral rasa, like the trees and the animals and.
Yes, Shanta, not Sakya.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that is the actual success of life, transcendent relationships. For devotee to get liberation is not very difficult. Even one who is unable to establish a relationship with Krishna can achieve liberation by merging into the Brahman effulgence. This is called Sayuja Mukti. Vaishnavas never accept Sayuja Mukti, although sometimes they accept the other forms of liberation, namely Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya, and Sasriti. A pure devotee, however, does not accept any kind of mukti. He wants only to serve Krishna in a transcendental relationship. This is the perfectional stage of spiritual life. Mayavadi philosophers desire to merge into the existence of Brahman effulgence, although this aspect of liberation is always neglected by devotees. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, describing this kind of mukti, which is called kaivalya, or becoming one with the Supreme, has said, Kaivalyam narakayati. Becoming one with the Supreme is as good as going to hell. Therefore, the ideal of Mayavad philosophy, becoming one with the Supreme, is hellish for a devotee. He never accepts it. Mayavadi philosophers do not know that even if they merge into the effulgence of the Supreme, this will not give them ultimate rest. An individual soul cannot live in the Brahman effulgence in a state of inactivity. After some time, he must desire to be active. However, since he is not aware of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and therefore has no spiritual activity, he must come down to further activities in this material world. This is confirmed in Srimad-Bhagavatam 10-32. Aruhya krichretna parampadam tataha patantyadho nadrita yusmadangrayaha. Because Mayavadi philosophers have no information regarding the transcendental service of the Lord, even after attaining liberation from material activities and merging into the Brahman effulgence, they must come down again to this material world to open hospitals or schools or perform similar philanthropic activities. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Kadam Bhakunana Swaminiti Namne Goraklipamrita Praptam Rajamaya Purya Piyaha Prabhupada Priyolokam Jayadvaita Nivaritam. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Gurudas Jayadvaita Swami Namne Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Sunyavadi Bhastachadi Satarine. So, yeah, here it is explained that the devotee does not want this kind of mukti, at least, and the pure devotee does not want is not interested in any kind of mukti, but especially the Mayavad mukti, because it devoids one from a relationship with the Lord. So a devotee wants love and relationship with the Lord. So he's not interested to that kind of mukti, especially. And Prabhupada explains it very well. At one point, when you're in the Brahman effulgence, the spirit soul nature is to be active and to desire, to have some desire. And if it's not fulfilled, then at one point they will have to come back. But I didn't know they would come back as philanthropists. This is new for me too. I just learned that. So anyway, loving relationship is much better, much colorful, much tasteful with the Lord than just trying to merge into Him. It's my understanding. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. We have a comment from Praveen Krishna Prabhu. Is it correct to say that devotees are fearful of the liberation of merging and not just not desiring?
Yeah, but we hear in Srimad-Bhagavatam that Gopkumar narrowly escapes the Brahmajyoti. It's hellish. Who isn't afraid of hellish life? So the devotee is fearful that if I become contaminated by impersonalist philosophy, and I could lose the privilege of devotional service. So just as a devotee is fearful of Maya, respectfully fearful of Maya, he's fearful of the impersonal conception. Fearful means like fire. We can use it, but we have to be careful. The impersonal conception, of course, we have no use for it even. We just are very careful. We don't want to be contaminated by Mayavad philosophy.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. We have one last question, then we'll go to our final kirtan. But Saraswati Devi got the question there. She says, why is it that Mayavadis fall down from Brahma effulgence to open hospitals, school, etc.?
Yeah, they've fallen down after pious activities. They fall down to that because they need some engagement. The position of Kaivalya, of being merged, is unconstitutional. So the living entity still has individuality, and he may still have some desire to do something. He doesn't have the gross desires, let me pig out on sense gratification. But he has still some desire, let me enjoy. So he thinks like this. Even in this life, we see that great Paramahamsas become attracted to the idea of doing some philanthropic work. They may not become attracted to activities of gross material enjoyment, but they become attached to these notions of serving the Daridra Narayans and so on.
Thank you. We have a quick question from Tulsi Priya Devi.
Thank you for your indulgence. My question is, in the Brahmajyoti, one loses this sense of identity of oneself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's just interesting to me how part of being a servant of Krishna in pure devotional service means that there's a self to serve. It's not that you don't exist, it's that your existence or your identity is tethered to Krishna. You're part and parcel and you're a servant. So it just seems interesting. I think people don't really have a clear concept of what it means to not have an identity. They think it's nice, but it isn't. Thank you.
Panchatattva Prabhu, are you available for kirtan? Perhaps you have stepped away. Well,
I'm here. I just had a little trouble with my phone.
All right, Prabhu. We're here for you.
I had a quick question for Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj uses this phrase, held in abeyance. Is it that their sense of self is held in abeyance? Because,
Yes, that's the idea.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Privrajagacharya Astotra Satashi Shrimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Privrajagacharya Astotra Satashi Shrimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Puruchottama Chetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari, Hari Bol. Thank you so much to our Kirtaniyas, Caitanya Prabhu and Panchatat Prabhu. Thank you also so very much. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for being present. Caitanya Prabhu, any final words?
Thank you, Radhesha Prabhu.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Guru Maharaj, Jayadvaita Maharaj ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari
Hari-
Bol.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Krishna, thank you.
Hari Hari Bol.